Struggling nurse's hidden dreams revealed, patient's father proposes an amazing first date. Sarah's heart raced as she read the note tucked beneath her lunch bag at the hospital. Ice cream tomorrow. Mark. Her mind spun. The father of her young patient Ethan. Her hands trembled, not just from the surprise of the invitation but from the unsettling realization of what it meant. It was impossible. Her life was a kaleidoscope of responsibilities, each rotation revealing the crushing weight of bills, her elderly parents' needs, and the expectations that held her hostage. Ice cream. How could she even consider it? Every moment in Cedar Grove felt like a ticking clock, a relentless reminder that her dreams of becoming a physician were fading. As she strolled the hospital's sterile halls, flashes of her childhood ambition flickered in her mind like a distant star. She wanted to heal. To spark hope. Yet, here she was, endlessly mired in scrubs, her aspirations cloaked beneath the fraying fabric of obligation. And then there was Ethan, his laughter pouring into her soul like a soothing balm amid the storm. He was everything to her. But as she pondered Mark's proposal, an icy fist clenched around her heart. Could she abandon her duties for an evening filled with possibility? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let us continue. Returning her focus to the chaos of the ER, Sarah tried to shake off the confusion swirling in her mind. Each beeping monitor, every desperate call for help, pulled her back into the relentless present. As she threaded through chaotic families and hurried doctors, her eyes caught Ethan's bright gaze. His spirit shone despite the shadows of illness drawing her into his world, reminding her of the reasons she chose nursing. But with that reminder came the pang of yearning for something more, a path that felt increasingly out of reach. Mark's soft eyes had seen the layers of her commitment, and she felt torn. A part of her deeply buried and aching for freedom longed to explore this burgeoning connection. But could she remain tethered to her family's needs, her very soul fighting for air while her dreams suffocated? In that moment of turmoil, she recalled walking through the hospital chapel last week, overwhelmed by the weight of it all, where she had prayed for clarity, for guidance. But instead of answers, she faced a battleground of emotions, strength battling desperation, duty colliding with passion, and then came the gut punch. Ethan's condition plummeted without warning, sirens blaring, alarms shrieking, and in that piercing chaos, Sarah felt the tremors of fear and uncertainty course through her veins. The stakes were higher than they ever had been. She was caught between the life of her young patient and the flicker of connection with Mark, who now stood at the precipice of her life, a vast unknown shimmering before her. The hospital felt smaller, the walls closing in, forcing her to confront one insurmountable question: could she pursue her dream of being a physician while ensuring that every moment was devoted to the boy whose laughter meant the world to her? As she stood at the edge of this dizzying brink, she sensed that her next decision would alter the trajectory of her life forever. The noise around her flickered like static, dulling the frantic sounds of the emergency room. Sarah's thoughts spiraled as she moved mechanically, focusing on her duty to Ethan, her young patient whose critical condition had now ensnared her heart and mind. She could hardly breathe, weighed down by a torrent of fears paddling within her. The shadows of urgency and despair shadowed every corner of her consciousness. Every pulse of adrenaline coursing through her veins reminded her of the truth she could no longer suppress. She was strong, deeply committed to healing, but perhaps her strength could be used in ways far less conventional than just following the path that had been laid out for her. As Ethan was wheeled into surgery, the team of doctors surrounding him moved like a choreographed dance, each familiar with their roles but never losing sight of the gravity of the situation. Until now, it had always been about the protocol, the tasks, the ever-spinning reality of life among the sick and suffering. Yet today, for the first time, she found herself questioning the very structure of her life. Time stretched, each second echoing against the walls of the ER, and suddenly, Mark's invitation felt like a creeping vine slowly drawing closer, entwining itself around her. Fingers trembled as she picked up the pen from the nurse's station, doodling aimlessly over the edge of a chart. Around her, the world was a blur of emotions, frustration, and resolute determination, but in that moment of introspection, she felt something shift within. The path toward her goals felt unyieldingly long and curiously unfulfilled. Mark had opened a door she was uncertain she was ready to walk through. Was there potential for a transformative connection? Could an offhand proposal bring color back to her life, perhaps rekindle the dreams she had stowed away? In the night, as the surgical team worked miracles, she stood vigil just outside the door, her heart a battleground of desires and duties. Voices bounced off the walls, cries for hope, pleas for strength, and behind it all, the soft sound of her own heartbeat, steady yet urgent. The choices ahead now felt like an intricate tapestry woven with threads of longing and fear. How could she navigate this maze? Sarah wondered. Could she reconcile her duties as a caretaker with the yearning to embrace life, and what exhilarating possibilities awaited her if she dared to step outside her self-imposed cage? She felt a fire ignite inside her, one that pushed her to take charge of her own narrative. Mark's kindness lingered in her thoughts. His caring manner and the genuine connection they shared made her realize that pursuing her dreams did not equate to neglecting her responsibilities. The ice cream date felt emblematic of beckoning into a world where she could finally feel alive again. Yet, a gnawing doubt crept in. What if stepping away, even briefly, jeopardized everything? The surgical lights flickered off, and Sarah could only squint into the unknown. The weight of choice lay before her as the doctors emerged, weary faces illuminated by the enormity of the task they had undertaken. Ethan's life hung in the balance, but so too did Sarah's determination to chase after the pieces of herself that had long been hidden. What happens next would define not just her practice as a nurse, but also her very identity. The uncertainty churned inside her as she witnessed each doctor's gesture. There was care in their tired eyes. Yes, it was care that motivated her to push onward. With renewed determination, she took a step back from the hospital's pulsing chaos and faced the potential of promise that paradoxically lay outside her realm, grasping tighter onto the hope that she wouldn't merely survive but thrive. In that moment of unyielding clarity, she felt the pivotal realization that would reverberate through her core. The time had come for her to confront not only her past choices but her future as well. The weight of what lay ahead hung ominously in the air. Now, it was time to face Mark once again, a man who might just reshape her future in ways she never imagined. Would she meet him, embracing the unknown? Or would she cling to the familiar, at the risk of losing herself completely? The lights overhead provided a harsh contrast to the somber shadows lingering in her mind. As Sarah watched the team of doctors exchange weary glances post-surgery, a wave of emotion surged within her, exposing the raw vulnerability that clashed with her professional demeanor. She had been the one to train in these chaotic scenarios, but tonight felt different. Tonight felt personal. She turned away from the surgical bay, seeking refuge in the quiet corners of the nurse's station. Her hands fidgeted with the ink of her pen as her thoughts swarmed around Mark's invitation like moths to a flame. The ice cream date innocuous, yet laden with possibility. Every refusal she had made in transient moments of panic flooded her mind. As much as she wanted to dismiss the idea of stepping out of her protective bubble, the thought of embracing something new began to shimmer with appeal. That a patient had fought for life tonight, and in his battle, she perceived a reflection of her own struggles. Each decision to focus solely on her nursing career had been monumental yet confining, allowing little room for personal exploration. But what was beneath that layer of responsibility? What unmet dreams were waiting for her on the other side of fear? Determined to confront her own hesitations, she spent a few moments breathing deeply, her chest rising and falling as she centered herself around her mission to heal, to give hope. Yet in the inner depths of her spirit, a voice began to emerge. You're more than a nurse, it's time to discover who else you can be. The quiet insistence grew louder, resonating with the underlying truth she had kept buried. The night air outside the hospital was crisp, laden with untold stories and hidden paths. Stepping through the sliding glass doors, she felt the weight slowly lifting, replaced by exhilaration on the brink of vulnerability. As her breath formed small clouds in the chilly dusk, visions of laughter and lighter moments wove themselves into her thoughts. Her phone buzzed in her coat pocket, interrupting the budding daydream. Mark's name illuminated the screen, propelling her thoughts into a tangle of excitement and anxiety. Should she return the call, or was it safer to remain untouched by the reality he represented? Embracing the unknown set electric currents dancing within her, amplifying her heartbeat. Perhaps it was time to feel more than just the sterile air of the hospital. With trembling fingers, she finally took the plunge, hitting the call button. Each ring seemed to resonate with her tiring resolve, weaving a fabric of uncertainty between duty and desire. The moment he answered, the warmth of his voice sent tremors of connection through the cool night air, pulling her closer to possibilities she had only dared to imagine. "Sarah," he greeted, and with a melodic lilt, she could hear the smile spread across his face. Those small moments of human connection had always been her lighthouse in storms, guiding her back toward herself. They spoke candidly, Mark sharing snippets of his day interspersed with curiosities about her responsibilities. With each exchanged word, the weight of her reclusive tendencies began to feel less like a cage and more like softened walls cradling her in safety. Yet an urgent tickle of trepidation remained what awaited her beyond these moments. Would she lose sight of her nursing identity if she surrendered to the thrill of adventure? As their banter unfolded under the dim glow of city lights, a realization shone through her previous fears: the potential for building a new narrative was intoxicating. Yet, the thread of unresolved conflict remained taut, straining against her carefully maintained boundaries. She was at a crossroads, faced with the undeniable truth that she could no longer remain in the shade of her habitual roles. The call ended with a tentative agreement for their outing, leaving her with a swirling concoction of hope and intimidation. Standing alone outside the emergency room, staring up at the stars flickering faintly against the night's fabric, she felt the weight of choice stakes pressing down more firmly than ever. Each choice now hung suspended before her. The urge to flee from Mark's invitation battled against her instinct to seek growth. Yet as she turned toward the hospital entrance, a silent resolve began to solidify within her. She wouldn't let her fears dictate the contours of her future any longer. But as she entered the hospital once more, the familiar scents and sounds engulfed her senses, pulling her back into a world she knew all too well. Submerged in professional obligations and a burgeoning inner tension, she could not shake the feeling that this decision, however small, could become her defining moment. How would she reconcile these revelations with her role as a dedicated nurse? The answer lay just beyond her reach, tantalizingly close yet shrouded in uncertainty. With a flutter in her heart, she steeled herself for the next challenge, one that could either anchor her to what was known or catapult her into a life she had only dreamed of. Would she take the dive or retreat? The next choice was looming, and with it, the promise of a transformation she dared to envision. As Sarah re-entered the bustling world of the emergency department, the cacophony of beeping monitors and hurried footsteps drowned out her lingering thoughts of Mark. She felt herself slip back into the role of caregiver, her instincts sharpening, shielding her from the tugging doubts of her personal choices. Yet, beneath the practiced exterior, a new awareness simmered, one she could not entirely ignore. Her first task upon returning was to tend to a young patient who had been admitted after a small accident in gym class. The child's wide eyes shimmered with unspoken fear and discomfort. As Sarah approached, she could see the deepening shadow of anxiety etched in the girl's face. The nurse instinctively hatched a plan. This wasn't just about medical care. This was a chance to connect, to understand, and perhaps even to cultivate a moment of freedom for both of them in the sterile environment of the hospital room. "Hey there," Sarah said with a warm smile, kneeling down so she could meet the girl's gaze. "I'm Sarah, and I'm here to take care of you. Can you tell me your name?" With that small interaction, she sensed a familiar bond blossoming. The girl hesitated at first, but as Sarah gently prompted her with playful questions about her favorite colors and animals, the tension slowly unwound. They shared giggles over silly cartoons, and in those fleeting moments, Sarah felt a lightness in her heart that shifted the focus from her own hesitation to the joy of connection. Suddenly, she understood something crucial: each engagement with a patient could be a doorway to broadening her own lived experience. How had she missed this before? Every smile, every shared story, and every act of compassion held the potential to create feelings of warmth that could replace her fears. This wasn't just about healing others, it could also be about her own liberation, but the momentary victory was disrupted when a familiar figure stepped into view. It was Evan, a fellow nurse, whose stoic demeanor often masked his perceptive nature. He stood with arms crossed, observing Sarah's interaction with an inscrutable look. "You've got a real gift with patience," he remarked, his voice cutting through the air with unexpected gravity. Caught off guard, Sarah felt her grin fade slightly. It was easy to banter and connect with a child, but how would this even matter in the grand tapestry of a nursing career? "Thanks," she replied, adopting a slightly sheepish tone. "I guess I just remembered what it felt like to be nervous, and thought I could help." As Evan leaned against the doorframe, his gaze now piercing, he challenged her with the weight of an unasked question. "And what about the things that make you nervous out there beyond the confines of the hospital? You seem like you're wrestling with something bigger than just a few missed opportunities, Sarah." The feeling of exposure burned in her chest. How could he sense the turmoil lurking beneath her surface? She tried to deflect, focusing instead on her patient's smile that flickered like a candle in the darkness. Yet Evan's scrutiny was not easily escaped. "Don't ignore it," he pressed, and for a moment, she caught a glimmer of compassion in his eyes that encouraged confrontation. "Taking that ice cream date, or whatever else might make you step out of your comfort zone, it's not just a distraction. It's part of your growth, isn't it?" She felt the world tilt on its axis, reality anchoring to his words. They hung there, laden with an unmistakable truth. The tentative arrangement with Mark had ignited something inherent in her, a thirst for life beyond her carved path. But could she embrace this collision of personal and professional identity without losing herself? "I need to think," she finally murmured, urgency bubbling to the surface. Perhaps Evan had sparked what she hadn't fully acknowledged, the urgency to confront not only her fears but the aspirations lurking in her heart. Making her way down the corridor, Sarah's pulse quickened. She had been tasked with the dual duty of healing others and herself, and it was time to reclaim the narrative of her existence. As she prepared for her next shift, visions of possibilities danced just out of reach. Would she dare to pursue the life she secretly hoped for? As she scanned over the hospital schedules for her next assignment, a single thought stood out starkly: if not now, when? The dawning resolve pulled her forward, yet the uncertainty of change still loomed large. The decision awaited her: would she stride into the unknown, finally allowing herself the freedom to bloom, or would she retreat back to the safety of her nursing duties alone? She shut her eyes momentarily, summoning the courage she had shown countless patients. Maybe the newfound intensity in her spirit would become her strongest ally. "Tomorrow," she whispered to herself, "I will take a leap." But just as she opened her eyes toward the horizon of possibilities, a sudden ringing blasted from her pocket. It was a text message, and the preview invited her to face yet another decision, one that could change everything. What awaited her on the other side could be unpredictable, and vulnerable. With her heart racing, she hesitated, knowing whatever message she was about to read could very well alter the course of her life again. Before she could process the urgency of the moment, Sarah's thumb hovered over the screen. The sender was Mark, the name reverberating through her racing thoughts like a secret incantation. "Hey, are you free tomorrow evening? I'd love to take you out for that ice cream. Maybe we can chat about the shifts we've had." A jolt of electricity shot through her. She had filled the cracks of her day with dreamlike possibilities of reconnecting with him, yet now that physical invitation blurred the lines she had carefully drawn. Alongside her instinctual responses to help others, there was a budding desire for companionship, one that could not escape the constraints of her role as a nurse. With her heart pounding, she weighed her options, each option conjuring images of both excitement and risk. That in an environment where life and death were often a heartbeat apart, the stakes around her personal choices suddenly felt magnified. She could forge ahead with this chance to confront her feelings for Mark, potentially sowing seeds of joy amidst the clinical chaos, or she could remain rooted in familiar discomfort, shutting herself off from possibilities. Yet, a nagging voice whispered that what was at stake was more than just a date. It was about her authentic self, the one that would dare to collide the different spheres of her life in a dance of honesty. Standing at this crossroads, she recognized a pivotal moment, one where she could no longer afford to linger in the habitual. Taking a deep breath, Sarah put her phone down and turned her focus back to the ward. The energy around her buzzed with the frantic pace of hospital life, a stark contrast to the tension simmering within her. She felt a sense of determination swell. The inevitable choice awaited her, but she resolved that every action hereon would bring her closer to clarity. She approached her next patient, an elderly man named Mr. Jenkins, who laid in the bed with a weary demeanor yet brightened at her arrival. "Hello there, Mr. Jenkins," she greeted, sensing that every interaction was an opportunity for an exploration different from her own. "Ah, Sarah. You always bring the sunshine," he replied, his smile lacing warmth through the cool sterility of the room. Their exchanges, full of stories from a bygone era, weaved an intricate tapestry of life experiences that pulled her focus away from her inner turmoil. Engaging him in a discussion about his granddaughter's graduation brought her a surprising clarity how stories could bridge generational gaps, just as her fears about dating could bridge gaps in her own existence. "What's the secret to happiness?" Sarah asked boldly after sharing her own stories. "To seize each moment, my dear," he said with surprising vigor. "Don't hold back because you're afraid of falling. It's those who leap who truly live." His words revealed a profound revelation that resonated deep within her. She realized the wisdom of his advice could extend beyond mere words and find roots in her choices. Did she really want to let another opportunity slip through her fingers, paralyzed with trepidation? As she bandaged his hand, a sense of courage coalesced from her patient interactions. Each shift, each connection was more than just a job, they cumulatively shaped who she could become, daring her to embrace vulnerability as she studied lives entwined with hope and sorrow. As she left Mr. Jenkins's room, her heart swelled with newfound determination. She was fluctuating between fear and a yearning for connection, but now she felt ready to confront the unknown. The message from Mark still loomed in her mind, a siren call entangled in uncertainty and excitement. Determined, she picked up her phone again, her pulse racing as she prepared to text back. The decision loomed large. It was either the next step into the abyss of profound self-discovery or playing it safe in the shadows of routine. "Hey Mark, I'm in," she typed, then paused to give herself a moment of reflection. The weight of her choice pressed against her chest, but it only strengthened her resolve. Before she could hit send, the unmistakable sound of an overhead announcement echoed down the corridor. The calm before a storm engulfed the ward. A code blue. Instinct kicked in, her training speeding into action. But as she sprinted toward the commotion, another realization gripped her. Sometimes the greatest tests of self-discovery come during the chaotic whirlwind of life, where choices are not just carved but demanded. As she whirled into the medical bay, the clinical urgency of the situation pulled her focus away, yet the question lingered: what door would she open for herself after this? What awaited her on the other side of this moment was unpredictable and undoubtedly transformative. The chaos of the medical bay enveloped Sarah as she entered, her instincts honed by years of practice kicking in like a well-oiled machine. Voices buzzed around her, punctuated by the beeping of monitors and a sense of urgency that electrified the air. The reality of her surroundings mixed with her internal conflict, creating a cacophony of emotions that demanded resolution. Her mind momentarily flickered back to the text she had almost sent Mark. Was there even a chance for a budding romance amid the high-stakes demands of her job? She pushed the thought aside and focused on the task at hand. The team had gathered around a patient, their collaborative movements a dance of precision and urgency. As she joined them, adrenaline coursed through her veins, sharpening her senses. The patient in distress was a young man whose heart had given way far too soon. He fought against the invisible chains wrapping tightly around his life, and as she stepped closer, Sarah felt the weight of responsibility crash over her. This was the moment when every decision mattered, not just for the patient in front of her but for every unspoken moment she might miss in her own life. "Sarah, can you start in 4?" One of the nurses called out, her tone brisk yet urgent. Without hesitation, Sarah nodded, channeling her focus. Her hands moved deftly, memories of the countless procedures she had performed swimming through her mind as she worked. As she inserted the needle, she caught a glimpse of the young man's terrified eyes. In that instant, their worlds collided, his fear stark against her determination. She wanted to reassure him, to look into his life beyond this moment. "You've got this," she murmured, finding a way to bridge their existence, if only for a fleeting second. Her voice came out steady, but doubts of her own came crashing back. What if she faltered when it mattered most? Was she ready to embrace her challenges, romantic or otherwise, without the fear of failure shadowing her every move? The rapid-fire commands continued as they stabilized the patient, but Sarah felt a shift within her. A desire bubbled up, intermingling the urgency of the situation with a call to her own heart's ambitions. Just as she had advocated for her patients, now was the time to advocate for herself, to reclaim the fragments of her identity she had tucked away in the folds of her scrubs. Once the crisis abated, a reluctant calm settled over them, and Sarah stepped back to catch her breath. The adrenaline faded, but the revelation stayed. She didn't want to only react to life's demands. She wanted to pursue her dreams, to integrate all parts of herself, caregiver, confidant, friend, and, yes, maybe even a partner. Mark's invitation wasn't just about a date, it was a potential turning point, an opportunity to reshape her future. While washing her hands, she reminded herself of Mr. Jenkins's advice, to seize each moment. If stepping into this relationship with Mark could be a reflection of her willingness to embrace the unknown, then perhaps it was worth pursuing. She was no longer just a nurse designated to exist within the confines of her duties. As she dried her hands, an idea sparked within her. What if she invited Mark to join her at the hospital for a volunteer shift? He could see her in her element, collaborative and compassionate, while she could explore their connection in a safe yet distant environment. It provided both structure and freedom, a dance of discovery without overwhelming uncertainty. The moment was both thrilling and terrifying. She knew it was a gamble, but growth was often birthed from uncertainty. Could she open this door to both her personal and professional self? Taking a deep breath, Sarah pulled out her phone once again, deliberating over the invitation. She wasn't just ready to reply, she was prepared to step into a broader narrative of her existence. With fingers poised over the keyboard, she began to type, a single question lingering just beyond her thoughts. What if this could be the beginning of something transformative, a bridge from her present to a future where she refused to remain confined? And with that, she pressed send, a rush of hope mingling with apprehension. The journey awaited, but would Mark share in her vision, or would she stand at the precipice alone, struggling for balance in her newfound path? The wait for Mark's response felt infinite, a taut string stretched between anticipation and anxiety. Sarah resumed her duties, but her mind danced between the tasks at hand and the potential of that single text. The hospital was bustling with activity, but within her stirred a storm of introspection. What had shifted within her today? Was it merely the adrenaline rush of the medical bay, or was it something deeper, more profound? As the hours drifted by, she found herself reflecting on her own aspirations, ambitions that had slipped into the shadows of her daily routine. She hadn't just entered nursing to check boxes on a career list, she had envisioned a life where she made a meaningful impact. Wasn't this the same drive that could fuel a more fulfilling personal life? Amid the rhythm of hospital life, a familiar face approached her. Mr. Jenkins, her former supervisor. He wore the faintest of smiles, a mix of wisdom and inquiry in his gaze. Before she realized it, Sarah was sharing the details of her day, the chaotic moments in the bay, the heart-wrenching urgency of saving lives, and her recent epiphany regarding Mark. Inviting him to volunteer, a brilliant idea, Sarah. It will show him your world, he replied, his approval reinforcing the courage she had mustered. But as the conversation flowed, words of caution emerged. Just remember, being vulnerable is as much a part of growth as any skill you've sharpened here. You're not just a caregiver, you're a human being, too. His words resonated, echoing through her mind long after their conversation had ended. Discovering oneself often demanded courage, the kind she had exercised during moments of crisis. Yet, her personal fears loomed larger. What if Mark could see her vulnerabilities? What if he didn't recognize her complexity outside of her role as a nurse? Just then, her phone buzzed, disrupting her spiral of thoughts. Mark had replied, a simple acknowledgement that he was intrigued by the invitation. They would be volunteering together next weekend, and somehow, the enormity of that small interaction felt immense. It was one step closer toward intertwining both her worlds, professional and personal. As the shift drew to a close, Sarah reflected on her evolving identity. Could the same resolve that drove her during patient emergencies apply to her quest for personal fulfillment? What would it mean to grant herself the same compassion she extended to others? Opening herself up to a romantic connection brought forth the specter of fear. What if this didn't work? What if Mark couldn't match her drive, or, worse, didn't he understand her complexities? Yet, as she exited the hospital, the allure of possibilities began to ignite a sense of purpose within her. She envisioned herself standing at the confluence of her roles, not just a nurse working tirelessly for others, but a woman who cradles her dreams close, ready to explore love and connection without reservation. Emboldened by Mr. Jenkins' encouragement, she began to sketch out what her desired life might look like: a balance of self-care, professional ambition, and passionate love. What if this experience with Mark could unlock layers within herself? What if she could truly marry her career with the richness of human connection? Her heart raced. There was no denying that this next step was significant, a deliberate merging of her two worlds, but that excitement gave way to a tinge of doubt. Would the sparks fizzle out when faced with reality? The moment had come to confront her fears head-on, and a vibration in her pocket pulled her back to the present. It was a text from Mark, proposing a plan for their volunteer day that included grabbing lunch afterward. Was she ready to dive deeper into this unexpected journey? Sarah took a steadying breath. This was it, the moment to claim her future was finally within reach. With resolve solidifying in her chest, she replied to his message. Little did she know that navigating this thrilling venture would lead her not only into new feelings but also toward an important personal revelation, one that would challenge every aspect of her balanced existence. And as the night enveloped her, Sarah wondered if tomorrow would bring her the answers she sought, or if, instead, it would force her to confront deeper truths about herself and what she truly desired. The sun rose the next day with a hesitant glow, casting elongated shadows across Sarah's bedroom. As she brewed her morning coffee, her mind cycled through the events of the previous day, each moment replaying vividly. She hadn't just invited Mark to volunteer, she had essentially pulled a thread that could unravel the tightly woven fabric of her life, unveiling the personal aspirations she had relegated to obscurity. With each sip, a puzzle formed in her mind. How could she simultaneously excel as a nurse and explore a fulfilling relationship? The comforting aroma of coffee was overshadowed by the nagging question of whether Mark would appreciate that her dedication went beyond scrubs and patient charts. After half-heartedly getting ready, she opened her laptop to dedicate a few moments to her personal ambitions. While nursing was her calling, Sarah felt a yearning to cultivate talents she had previously neglected: her love for writing, art, and the occasional spontaneous adventure. The thought felt reinvigorating, like inhaling fresh air after being underwater for far too long. Yet, a creeping uncertainty gave her pause. What if investing time in herself rendered her less available to those who needed her most? Was she abandoning her core identity, or was she merely seeking balance? The mental churning intensified. She had acutely felt the weight of others' expectations for years. As if summoned by her thoughts, her phone chimed. Mark sent a message with details for their volunteering day. Looking forward to it. Can't wait to learn more about what you do. His enthusiasm acted like a beacon, shining light on a path she had hesitated to traverse. Fueled by a sudden surge of determination, she grabbed a notepad and began outlining reasons for stepping outside her comfort zone. Under personal goals, she scrawled: 1. Write a blog about my nursing experiences. 2. Start painting again. 3. Go hiking at least once a month. Each item tingled with possibility, igniting a fire she hadn't realized lay dormant within. Sarah smiled, invigorated by her newfound clarity. Yet as the afternoon crept closer, the time for volunteering with Mark, she felt the shadows of doubt creeping back. What if he expected her to be perfect? The pressure to live up to the version of herself she presented at work loomed large. This vulnerable side of herself, one that dreamed beyond the hospital's walls, felt fragile and uncertain against the sturdy backdrop of her professional persona. The car ride to the volunteer site became an internal battleground. Each stoplight brought another wave of anxiety. What if volunteering revealed unseen flaws? Would he still respect her if she fumbled through their tasks? When she arrived, the familiar sight of the community center brought a spark of reassurance. The anticipation of sharing her world with Mark also kindled a sense of purpose. She stepped inside, ready to engage not only with the community but with herself. As they started their work, Sarah allowed herself to view the tasks through the lens of exploration. With Mark beside her, she could merge her nursing experience with her genuine passion for helping others. Conversations began to flow freely, her laughter mingling seamlessly with his, creating an atmosphere that felt both safe and exhilarating. Yet, just as a sense of ease settled in, a child approached them, tugging at Sarah's sleeve. "Are you really a nurse?" he asked, eyes wide with curiosity. The innocence of his question cut through her tension, grounding her in this moment of authenticity. "Yes," she replied, kneeling to meet his gaze. "And I love helping people, just like I'll be helping you today." As she spoke, her words unearthed a deeper realization. The role of a caregiver also mandated that she care for her own aspirations. Each interaction both with Mark and the children demonstrated to Sarah how entwined her personal fulfillment could be with her professional identity, yet within the happiness, an undercurrent of tension remained. What would the evolution of her relationship with Mark mean for the delicate balance she was forging between her career and personal life? What would happen when the exhilaration faded, and reality demanded attention? With these thoughts swirling, the day's activities came to a close. As Sarah walked out into the setting sun, hand in hand with Mark, she wondered what depths of herself still awaited her exploration and if that journey would lead to a profound shift in her life. Tomorrow's challenge loomed ahead. Could she truly embrace all parts of herself without fear of judgment? Would it be enough to navigate her professional resolve while risking her heart? The morning light spilled into Sarah's room, nudging her awake with urgent gentleness. Despite the shadows of doubt still hovering at the edges of her mind, an exhilarating sense of anticipation surged through her. She had taken the first step into a brighter dawn, not just for her career but for the woman she yearned to uncover beneath layers of obligation and restraint. As she prepared for the day, her reflection in the bathroom mirror struck her. With tousled hair and a hint of a smile, she resolved to greet this new adventure with courage. Mark's shared laughter from the volunteer work echoed in her thoughts, reminding her that genuine connection fostered growth not just for herself, but for others as well. Gritting her teeth against lingering fear, she returned to her notepad, reading her personal goals once more. Each point ignited something deeper, flushing her cheeks with renewed purpose. Writing a blog felt like throwing open the windows of her heart to let fresh air in. Painting again would invite color back into her life, highlighting the vibrancy she had suppressed for too long. And hiking each month. Each step would lead her closer to her adventurous spirit, hidden under the weight of a medical career. As she sipped her morning coffee, a ritual both familiar and empowering, Sarah decided today must not just be about self-discovery but also about the man alongside her journey. The thought of Mark lingered, packing the punch of reality into her excitement. Who was this person who evoked such comfort and inspiration? She leaned back, allowing her mind to wander through her previous concerns. What if he would not understand the depths of her challenges, the blurred lines between dedication and desire? Each time she imagined herself unguarded, a tinge of fear clouded the edges. But was she simply projecting her insecurities? Mark seemed sincere, always reaching out, as though inviting her to share not only her work but the very essence that shaped her. As the kick of caffeine began to lighten her spirits further, she knew their next volunteering day deserved to hold more significance. Determined, she decided today's efforts would focus on revealing herself not just as a nurse, but as a woman eager to explore life beyond the confines of her everyday routine. Arriving at the volunteer site, Sarah felt her heartbeat quicken, not with anxiety, but with an electrifying mix of nerves and excitement. The sight of Mark, already engaged in conversation with the kids, made her smile bloom effortlessly. "I'm so glad you're here," he said, brightening at her entrance. The sincerity in his voice chased away the remnants of fear, enveloping her in warmth. Together, they moved among the children, spreading cheer like confetti. Sarah noticed her hands moving freely, interacting without reservation. There was a beauty in taking down barriers, both for herself and for the young lives they were touching. As their laughter intertwined, she caught glimpses of the future she hoped to mold, an existence where her professional passion blended seamlessly with personal joys. Yet, between the moments of joy, a voice crept into her thoughts, whispering insecurities. The fear of inadequacy returned with a quiet menace, questioning if she could sustain both her nurturing spirit for others and her growing affection for Mark. Would he wait patiently as she unfolded her layers, or would he grow impatient and choose someone unburdened by self-doubt? Just then, a pause emerged in the activities, like a stillness following a storm. Sarah caught Mark's gaze and saw genuine curiosity and concern mirrored back at her. It struck her that perhaps he too harbored fears of vulnerability. Determined to close the gap, she took a deep breath and initiated a conversation that would tether them closer, revealing not just her identity as a nurse, but also her buried dreams and aspirations. As the words flowed between them, a dawning realization began to bubble within Sarah. This exchange could illuminate a deeper understanding, whether it was about their relationship or her capacity for self-acceptance. In that openness, she sensed a shift, revealing this aspect of herself might actually encourage Mark to share his own vulnerabilities. When the sun began its slow descent, painting the sky in shades of orange and violet, Sarah felt a stirring within her, an awakening. Perhaps today marked the beginning of an authentic personal journey fueled by both professional commitment and the courage to embrace love. But then, as she stole a sidelong glance at Mark, his laughter ebbing into a pensive silence, she wondered, was she ready to reveal the entirety of her heart? With her feelings lingering unspoken, the gravity of what lay ahead pressed heavily upon her, teasing the thin line between readiness and retreat. The sun set on that transformative day, casting a warm golden glow over the community center as Sarah walked beside Mark, their shoulders brushing against one another. There was a newfound connection unraveling between them, a bond layered with shared laughter, stories, and the thrill of vulnerability. Reflecting on their earlier conversations, Sarah felt the weight of uncertainty begin to lift. She realized she could seamlessly weave together her professional identity and her personal aspirations. Today had not just been about volunteering, it was a revelation of who she was at her core. Merging her life as a caregiver with her desires to write and connect deeply felt like reclaiming her power. The fleeting moments they shared with the children had reminded Sarah that every small act of kindness could nurture not only others but also herself. Each smile she offered lit the way for an exploration of her own identity. She had carried the burdens of trepidation and confusion for too long, tethering herself to expectations that suffocated her spirit. As they reached the parking lot, Sarah hesitated, heart racing with a blend of excitement and apprehension. This was the perfect moment to embrace both sides of her life, the dedicated nurse and the woman who yearned for more adventure, love, and self-fulfillment. "Hey, Mark," she said, her voice steady despite her racing thoughts. "I really enjoyed today. It felt freeing to share my experiences." The honesty in her words opened a doorway, not only for her but for him as well. His eyes lit up, an encouraging smile spreading across his face. "I felt the same way. I love seeing you in your element. It's inspiring." In that moment, Sarah took a breath and decided to leap. "I want to invite you to join me at an upcoming writer's workshop. I've been wanting to get back into writing, and maybe you'd like to explore it with me. It's a huge part of who I am." Mark's expression softened. "I'd love that. I've always admired your creativity. It's about time you share it with the world." She could hardly believe her ears. Mark's enthusiasm was a green light, a validation of her self-worth and her dreams. This wasn't just about marking a date on the calendar, it was a symbolic step toward integrating the myriad facets of Sarah's identity. She felt the gravity of their budding connection deepen as they made plans, envisioning moments filled with laughter and creativity. As days turned into weeks, Sarah found herself flourishing both personally and professionally. Each shift at the hospital only confirmed her strength, while her dates with Mark expanded her horizons. They ventured to the writer's workshop, forging a bond that normalized openness and vulnerability. She shared anecdotes about her nursing experiences, translating her challenges into stories rich with insight and emotion. Mark reciprocated, revealing his own fears and hopes, and together they balanced the intricacies of their lives, weaving a narrative of shared growth. The more she explored this dynamic, the clearer her aspirations became. One evening, as they strolled under the starlit sky, Sarah made a conscious decision she would pursue her medical degree, reclaiming the shadow of her early dreams. The ambition that once felt stifled was now ignited, driven by a love for healing and a passion for storytelling. When she received the acceptance letter from the local medical school, tears of joy streamed down her face. At that moment, she recognized how far she'd come, no longer merely Sarah the nurse but an aspiring physician, embracing the fullness of her journey. Reflecting back, she realized that the spontaneous invitation for ice cream had been the catalyst for her transformation. It had unraveled her hidden dreams, launching her toward uncharted territories with a steadfast focus on her evolution. As she stood with Mark under the canopy of stars, she grasped the true essence of balance, how nurturing her own spearheaded growth enhanced her ability to care for others. Their relationship flourished as their individual aspirations intertwined. Like vines, no longer confined by fear but shaped by courage, with a confident smile, she turned to Mark. "I can't help but feel this is just the beginning." Together, they ventured into a shared future filled with potential, a testament to the power of connection and self-discovery. Now was the time for decisive action. If you have found inspiration in Sarah's journey to find her voice and reclaim her dreams, you need to subscribe now to the channel. Leave a like now to help us share more incredible stories of personal transformation. Comment your thoughts and reactions to Sarah's adventure. What would you do in her shoes? Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this empowering conclusion. Don't wait even one more second. Your support is essential in bringing more life-changing narratives to light.